The soft girl rebellion, when strong Black women finally choose themselves. I recently sat down with Vonciel Kinard, and I need you to understand something about them. Vonciel is doing the kind of work that doesn't just change individual lives, it rewrites entire legacies. They are a healer, a truth teller, and a guide who is quietly reshaping how we talk about trauma, wholeness, and what it really means to be soft in a world that taught us survival was the only option. Vancier is making the world gentler, safer, and more honest for Black professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs who have been carrying wounds they didn't even know had names. And what they shared with me, it rearranged something in my chest. So I want to share it with you because here's the thing: we don't talk enough about childhood trauma, especially not in our community, especially not when you're the one who made it out. When you're the executive, the entrepreneur, the one everyone calls when the world is falling apart, when you're the strong friend, the dependable one, the one who shows up no matter what. But what happens when the cape gets too heavy? What happens when the survival skills that got you here, the hypervigilance, the perfectionism, the inability to say no, the constant doing, start to quietly destroy the life you worked so hard to build? That's what Vancille and I talked about. And that's what I want us to sit with today. Let me be clear: childhood trauma is real, it's common, and it deeply impacts Black professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs. But here's the part that matters most: it is not a life sentence. With the right support, it can be acknowledged, processed, and transformed into wisdom rather than a hidden wound that silently runs your life. Trauma happened to you, but it doesn't have to define you. Now, I know some of you are already thinking, childhood trauma? That's not me. I had a roof over my head. I went to college. I'm successful. And that's exactly the problem because unhealed childhood trauma often shows up as what we call normal adult behavior: overworking, perfectionism, people pleasing, emotional shutdown, constant anxiety, especially in high achieving Black professionals. We've been taught to call it ambition, drive, excellence, but sometimes it's just survival mode with a business card. Naming it as trauma, not personal failure, is a powerful first step toward healing. But here's where it gets even deeper: healing childhood trauma isn't just about you, it's both an act of self love and community care. When Black professionals and entrepreneurs do this inner work, it breaks generational cycles. It improves mental and physical health. It creates healthier families, teams, and businesses. You healing. That's not selfish, that's sacred. So let's talk about what this actually looks like because I want to share three stories with you, three examples that Vonciel walked me through that show us what's possible when we stop running from our past and start turning toward it with softness. The first story is about a woman you know, Oprah Winfrey. Oprah grew up in extreme poverty in rural Mississippi and inner city Milwaukee during the Jim Crow and post Jim Crow era. She experienced repeated sexual abuse starting at age 9, rape by family members and family friends. She became pregnant at 14, and her baby died shortly after birth, adding profound grief to earlier trauma. She faced colorism, body shaming, and being underestimated in professional media spaces a, as a Black woman. And yet, she became one of the most successful Black women in history: a media mogul, a billionaire, a household name. But here's what matters: Oprah didn't get there by pretending the trauma didn't happen. She got there by doing the opposite. Oprah was raised by her grandmother and later her mother, moving between unstable homes. She endured years of sexual abuse and felt deep shame and isolation. A teacher who recognized her talent and voice helped change her trajectory, leading her into broadcasting as a teenager. As her career grew, she wrestled with whether to share her story publicly. When she finally did, it became a defining part of her brand: radical honesty and heart centered leadership. She began speaking openly about her childhood sexual abuse, on The Oprah Winfrey Show, reducing shame and secrecy around trauma for herself and her audience. She used therapy, spirituality, journaling, and mentorship as tools to process her experiences and build emotional resilience. She turned her platform into a space for conversations on childhood trauma, mental health, and healing, interviewing trauma experts and survivors. She built businesses, own network, Harpo Productions, rooted in storytelling, empathy, and personal growth, aligning her work with her healing journey. And what happened? She built a multi-billion-dollar media empire while maintaining a strong emphasis on emotional intelligence and healing. She inspired millions of viewers, especially Black women, to confront childhood trauma and seek therapy or support, normalizing these conversations. She demonstrated that acknowledging trauma does not diminish professional credibility. It can deepen leadership, empathy, and influence. Oprah hosted The Oprah Winfrey Show, the highest rated daytime talk show in history. She became North America's first Black female billionaire. She launched OWN Network and produced culture shaping content centered on emotional growth and healing. She co authored books and led televised discussions on trauma, including work with Dr. Bruce Perry on childhood trauma and its effects. She shifted mainstream media culture to include open discussions about childhood trauma, abuse, and mental health, especially for Black communities. She provided a model for Black women entrepreneurs and leaders who carry trauma, showing that healing and high achievement can coexist. She helped reduce stigma around therapy and trauma disclosure among Black audiences through her storytelling and platform. Oprah's story teaches us something critical: healing and high achievement can coexist. In fact, they need to. The second story is about Dr. Nadine Burke Harris, a Black pediatrician and former Surgeon General of California. Dr. Burke Harris was treating children in a low income, predominantly Black and Brown community in Bayview, Hunters Point, San Francisco, and she noticed something. Children with high ACE scores, adverse childhood experiences like abuse, neglect, household dysfunction had more asthma, ADHD, learning difficulties, and other health issues. But the medical system kept missing the root cause: trauma. While working at a community clinic, Dr. Burke Harris was struck by how many young patients had complex medical and behavioral issues without clear medical explanations. Learning about the original ACE study, she realized her patients' histories of violence, parental incarceration, substance use, and instability were driving their health problems. This insight led her to build an entire practice and advocacy agenda around trauma informed medicine. So she did something radical. She implemented routine ACE screening in her clinic to identify childhood trauma early. She educated families on how trauma affects the brain, nervous system, and body. Using accessible language, she advocated for trauma informed care in schools, clinics, and public health, pushing for systemic change. She wrote and spoke publicly about the intersection of race, trauma, and health outcomes. And what she discovered changed everything. Early identification and trauma informed care can improve physical and mental health outcomes for children, many of whom will become future Black professionals and leaders. She helped shift the conversation from what's wrong with you to what happened to you. That question alone is healing. Dr. Burke Harris founded the Center for Youth Wellness, focused on ACEs and toxic stress. She became California's first Surgeon General, prioritizing childhood trauma as a public health crisis. She published the book, The Deepest Well, on the lifelong impact of childhood adversity. She influenced policies to screen for ACEs in healthcare, particularly in underserved communities where Black children are disproportionately exposed to trauma. She gave Black professionals and leaders language and science to understand why their childhood experiences still affect their bodies and behavior today. She helped normalize trauma informed approaches in medicine, education, and public policy. Dr. Burke Harris showed us that trauma isn't just emotional, it's biological. It lives in our bodies and it can be healed. The third story is about Taraji P. Henson, an award winning Black actress and producer who has spoken openly about childhood trauma, grief, and depression. Taraji grew up in a working class Black family in Washington, D.C., witnessing violence and instability in her environment. She experienced trauma and grief from the murder of her child's father and the death of close family members, compounding earlier emotional wounds. She faced depression and anxiety while navigating Hollywood as a Black woman, where vulnerability and mental health struggles are often stigmatized. Taraji has shared that despite her public success, she struggled privately with deep sadness, irritability, and moments of feeling overwhelmed. She traced many of these feelings back to early experiences and later losses that were never fully processed. Seeing how mental health conversations were often dismissed in Black families, pray it away or be strong, she decided to use her platform to create a different narrative. But Taraji did something brave. She sought therapy and became vocal about her mental health struggles, refusing to hide them behind her success. She founded the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation, named after her late father, to increase mental health awareness and access to culturally competent care for Black people. She used interviews, social media, and public appearances to normalize conversations about childhood trauma, grief, and depression in Black families. And what happened? She helped destigmatize therapy and mental health treatment for Black communities by modeling that even successful, high profile Black professionals need help and healing. She created resources and partnerships that connect Black individuals and families to therapists who understand racialized trauma and cultural context. She reinforced the idea that tending to childhood and unresolved trauma is essential for sustaining success, not a sign of weakness. Taraji won major acting awards and became a leading Black actress in film and television. She launched the Boris Lawrence Henson Foundation to address mental health in Black communities. She produced and participated in mental health focused specials and conversations centering Black experiences. She encouraged Black professionals, creatives, and entrepreneurs to prioritize therapy and emotional wellness, regardless of outward success. She brought visibility to the specific ways trauma, racism, and grief intersect in Black lives and careers. She helped shift cultural norms toward greater softness, honesty, and compassion around mental health and childhood trauma. Taraji's story reminds us that success doesn't erase pain, but healing can transform it. So, what do we do with all of this? What does Vonciel Kinard want you to do differently after hearing these stories? First, name, don't numb. Within the next week, set aside quiet time to gently reflect on your own childhood, especially moments of fear, shame, neglect, or instability, and name at least one experience you now recognize as trauma or a wound you still carry. Write it down in a journal instead of pushing it away. Second, take one concrete step toward healing. Choose one soft, doable action. Schedule a therapy consultation, ideally with a trauma informed, culturally competent therapist. Look up your ACE score using a validated ACE questionnaire and reflect on how it might be showing up in your work, relationships, or leadership. Share a small, safe part of your story with a trusted friend, mentor, or support group instead of carrying it alone. Third, shift how you lead and parent. Pay attention to where your reactions at work or at home might be coming from old wounds, yelling, shutting down, over controlling, or overworking. Practice pausing, taking a breath, and choosing a softer, more regulated response, especially with your children, teams, or partners, to begin breaking generational patterns. Because here's what Vonciel Kinard knows, and what I know now too: healing childhood trauma is how we step into our soft girl era. It's how we release the cape. It's how we redefine strength. It's how we protect our peace as a practice, not just a hashtag. This is not about being weak. This is about being whole. This is about choosing yourself, not out of burnout, but out of reverence. This is about learning to be soft in a world that taught you survival. Your childhood trauma is real, but so is your healing. Your past shaped you, but it doesn't have to script your future. You are not broken. You are not too much. You are not beyond repair. You are worthy of softness. You are worthy of rest. You are worthy of healing. So here's my challenge to you: not tomorrow, not next month, right now. Stop waiting for permission to heal. Stop waiting until you're less busy, less tired, less overwhelmed. Stop waiting until the company is stable, the kids are grown, the relationship is fixed, because that day will never come. There will always be another fire to put out, another person to save, another reason to put yourself last. But what if you didn't? What if you chose you today? What if you named the wound today? What if you scheduled the therapy appointment today? What if you told someone the truth today? What if the most revolutionary thing you did this year wasn't launching the business, closing the deal, or getting the promotion? What if it was finally letting yourself be soft? Because the world doesn't need another version of you running on empty. The world needs you whole. Your family needs you whole. Your team needs you whole. Your community needs you whole. And you deserve to be whole. So take off the cape, put down the weight, and step into the softest, most powerful version of yourself you've ever known. The soft girl era isn't a trend, it's a revolution, and it starts with you.